Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast gives a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we'll have a My Veteran Story. This is part 2 of Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant Retired Bill Browne. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? And consider becoming a TLA patron. That's the Lost Arts patron. It's through donations that we are able to continue recording the podcast and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Just go to the Lost Art website and click on the Become a Patron link at the top. If becoming a TLA patron doesn't work for you and you would rather give a one-time donation, then go to the Lost Art website and scroll down until you see the donations link. Any donation is appreciated. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, you can always email me directly at thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. And as always, we do have merchandise for sale. We got cups, we got hats, we have all kinds of goodies. So just go to the website, click on that merchandise tab, and help spread the love of this podcast. All right, like I said, we have Bill Browne back with us for part 2. Bill, how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back and continuing on the story. When we last spoke, you were telling us a great story about the ghost bugler at one of the funerals that you went to. So in 29 Palms, California, wonderful place. Let's just go ahead and continue the story from there.
Yeah, so I did just about 4 years at 29 Palms, and then got sent to the School of Music for the I course. So by this point, I am married and I have a child, a baby, and we traveled from 29 Palms to Little Creek, and I enrolled in the I course for 6 months. Right, I course was great. I don't really have any cool or awesome or weird stories to tell about the I course at the school. It goes pretty quickly. At the time, the I course students were somewhat involved with the basic course students, in charge of section leaders, squad leader kind of thing, but not a whole lot going on there. From there, I got stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Okay.
So this would have been 94 to 97, I think, was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So it's my first, I was at Marine Corps Ground Combat Center. You're attached to headquarters unit, and it's just a training base. So you're not going out as a band and patrolling or learning any kind of weapon skills or anything. And of course, at Camp Lejeune, that's different. You're a weapons platoon to some degree. I was a 50 cal gunner, so I had to lug the 50 cal around and learn how to fire that, and it was great. It was really, really neat to launch that sucker.
Not the lugging it around part.
Not the lugging it. The getting to fire it is a really, really neat thing. Of course, the saw and the squad automatic weapon and all that kind of stuff was a lot of fun. Just doing that. So that was a duty station where we did a lot more training in that regard than you would think. Mm-hmm. It was neat because bands are always they always train together. They know how to practice. They know how to communicate, nonverbal communication. And so invariably, anytime we went out and did maneuvers, we would crush the grunt platoons. They had a hard time competing with us. So it was nice to be able to do that. And utilize our brains and our talents for nonverbal communication and just really being a cohesive unit. It's interesting how music and what you do in music translates to everything else you do in life.
Yeah, very true.
Knowing how to practice, how to be consistent with practice, what you need to focus on in practice. If you can do that with an instrument, then you can do that with anything. So very, very cool. I again, lots of bugling jobs, lots of lone bugler for morning colors. And I would go out and I would play like the corpsman birthday ceremony at one of the headquarters buildings there. I would go out and I would play a march. I would play, the bugle calls, then I would do the national anthem, and then I would do Navy hymn and Marines hymn, and then it was all me. We were so busy, the band would be doing something else, but they would have so many requests for stuff that I would go cover different things.
That's pretty wild. So you're doing all that solo bugle.
Yeah. Which is weird, but if that's all you get, it's better than not getting anything or having piped in music. So, or at least I'd like to think it is. it was me playing.
It had to have been.
Yeah. So while I was at Camp Lejeune, I went to the corporal's course. I got promoted to corporal, went to corporal's course. Actually graduated on a graduate out of that, and I got a sword. That was really cool, and I got a little trophy. It was pretty cool. It's a follow me, because that's their, follow me, a little follow me statue, but that thing broke at the ankles, and I've had that broken statue, a little statuette. It's in a closet somewhere. I carried it we tried to repair it a couple times, and it just kept breaking. But it's a neat little, neat little thing. And then while I was at Camp Lejeune, I learned how to type because I had a feeling I was going to be tasked with being admin. So I taught myself how to type and learned a lot about admin. And then Captain Trowan at the time was up at Headquarters Marine Corps. And okay. Nobody knew this, but at the time, the NATO band, Naples, Italy, was lobbying for more people from other services. And there hadn't been any Marines there. It had Navy, it had Army, and it had Air Force. From the U.S. And then it had other countries, Greece, obviously Italy, because it's in Italy, and just a few other NATO countries had sent musicians there to play in the band. But it was run by the Navy, so it was heavily staffed by the Navy. Mm-hmm. And they lobbied Headquarters Marine Corps, Captain Trowan, and Captain Trowan called me one day and he's like, hey, would you be interested in going to Italy? And I was like, yes, immediate yes. He says, well, hold on. Ask Shauna, ask your wife, and if she's okay with it, I'm going to send you to Italy as your next duty station. So she says, now in a moment of weakness, she said yes, because she was probably 6 months pregnant when we got to Italy. We landed in, I think, May. I think we landed in May, so it was just now summer in Italy, and there's no AC in these buildings, in the housing there.
No.
Air conditioning super expensive. They just don't have it. So she spent the next couple of months of being really, really pregnant in a very, very hot and humid environment, and she was pretty miserable. While I was off playing musician and being part of NATO, which was a super, super neat experience. And so our second child, Tanner, was born in Italy, in Naples, there at the Agnano American Medical facility. So it was pretty cool. But so I did 3 years in NATO. I had never sung ever, and they made me lead singer of the rock band.
Wow.
Yeah. The senior chief, Gordon Finley, was the guitar player, and they had a Navy guitarist, Scott Davis, Navy drummer, Paul Paluska, Army keyboardist, Tim, I'm forgetting his last name, and then Bruce Malone, Army guy from the School of Music. He was a bass player, taught at the School of Music a lot. All these guys are like top notch, super, super good. They wrote music. They could hear a song and just sit down and write it out and hand everybody parts and go with it.
Wow.
So I'm like, I don't sing. He's like, of course you sing. You play, you can sing. I'm like, I don't sing. And he's like, come on, man, we're going to make this happen. He goes, besides, you got the look. And I'm like, at the time I had hair. I was not ugly like I am. I had hair, and so he's like, you got the look. I'm like, trust me, it's going to take more than the look. But they worked really, really hard with me. And because they were so good, it made me sound good. And so the most of what I did was sing in the rock band. Wow. And I drum majored for the ceremonies at headquarters, NATO headquarters. and there's probably one ceremony a month, because there's lots of arrivals of dignitaries at NATO headquarters from all the NATO countries. So we would play an arrival ceremony for this country or that country once a month, the whole time I was there. So I would drum major those, and it was neat, drum majoring Italians and Greeks and U.S. guys and a sprinkling of other countries here and there. It was a very different looking band. Not just that the uniforms were all different, but just the way people marched was very different, and it was something. But that was really, really cool. And General Amos was a 1-star general. So eventually, to be Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Amos was there in Striking Forces South as a 1-star general. And whenever there were a lot of in Italy and in Europe, there's a lot of reasons to have a party or to have a function and celebrate something. And because there's all of these different countries in NATO and they all have a headquarters somewhere in this area, we were every 2 weeks we were doing a 3-hour rock band job for some country, and the military was there, and so General Amos got to see me a lot, and I'm the only Marine in this. There were 3 of us there, Shoemate and Montoya. Montoya came eventually. So Shoemate and Montoya were there, but I was the only one in the rock band. So, and I'm the lead singer, so I'm fronting the rock band. So as Marines, they just loved General Amos and his wife, just loved the fact that there was a Marine up there, killing it, and just everybody loved. I'll say we were really, really good. I was okay, but because of the guitars and the keyboards, and we had horns, we had a 3-horn line. Kenny Fly, Army Sergeant First Class, just killer sax player, just a really good group. And we played, I sang Brick House, I sang, all kinds of stuff. From Creep, I sang Creep from Radiohead. I killed it. Creep was great. And then you go from that to Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. This is the kind of music we played and sang, and people danced and they loved it, and it was a great time. It was a super, super good time. And then we would travel all over Italy and do that. Wow. We went to Milan, just all over the place. And then during the wars over there, Bosnia and Kosovo, we went over into Bosnia, and we played for a bunch of different refugee camps. We traveled in a small caravan with security in front and behind us. Yeah. And carried generators and our instruments, and we would set up and we would perform at refugee camps for the different military, like Spain. So we would play at a Spanish run refugee camp, a concert, and stay the night, and then pack up and then go to the next refugee camp and play for the military there. We would be the only entertainment they had in like a year, and so they really cut loose. It was really neat to be able to do that. And people talk about, oh, you were in the military, thanks for your service. And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that, but my military service, I was always in service of and in awe of what the military does. Yes, I was in the military. Yes, I could have been deployed at any point. Yes, I could have been really, really in harm's way, but it just never happened for me. But when I did go to support those folks, I was always in awe of what they did and what they had been through and what they had sacrificed to do all of that stuff. And I was happy that I could be there to help them have a time and a moment of just joy, and enjoy themselves and that kind of thing. So I was always very, very happy to do what I do, and never shied away from if I had been at the division for another 2 years, then I would have been deployed with the division. My roommate at the School of Music, Hufford, Robert Hufford, Master Sergeant Hufford, he went over and was in a convoy on a patrol, and his vehicle got blown up, and he was it was really, really tough. That was my roommate at the School of Music, trombone player, phenomenal guy. thankfully he fully recovered, and he's in California, has a great family. So I know all too well that there are folks in every MOS, military occupational specialty in the military, who spend their whole career and they don't find themselves in harm's way. But there are also people in every MOS that find themselves in harm's way. And you can't predict it, and you almost can't design it. It's like, who's going to be a master sergeant? Who's going to be a master gunnery sergeant? Who's going to make it a staff sergeant? You don't have a lot of, all you can do is the best you can do, go where you're told, and then what happens, happens. There's not a lot up to you other than your effort,
Right. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So, but Italy was fantastic. Brian Walden was the band officer at the time. He ended up going to the DC Navy Band, and being the director there. And while I was in DC with the Present Zone, we got to meet and hang out and do some stuff. So it's just really neat when the longer you're in and the people you meet, you really do realize what a small world the military is. And you run into guys you think you're never going to run into again, You just, wow, are you kidding me? Brian's up here. Yeah, and he's in charge of the DC band. Like, golly, that's cool. He wrote my letter of wrote one of the letters of recommendation for me to be the assistant drum major at the Present Zone.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he was it was that time frame. The time frame I was trying to audition and get selected for that was while I was in Italy, and then I got stationed at Camp Pendleton. And I was there for 8 months, and then I got the position and shipped to DC at the 8-month mark, being at Pendleton. Yeah. So Edmondson was the band officer. Master Sergeant Browndorf was the enlisted band leader, and I think Gunny Schweitzer, Blue,
yeah.
Blue was the drum major.
Okay.
And in that 8 months, I drum majored probably 70 jobs because you go to the divisions and they want sergeants and below. They want that kind of a thing. And then when it's not sergeants and below, it's not necessarily going to be your top guy doing it. So
yeah.
It was a good time. I was in charge I did supply there. I was in charge of supply for a while there. But again, I was there for 8 months and then shipped to DC. I won the audition to be assistant drum major, and that interview process was interesting. It was so the people that so you submit a tape, so they can see a drum major, and then you submit your letters of recommendation and your package to get selected. So it's a big package. It's kind of like if you're going to submit to be a warrant officer. There's this giant package that's got to go through the channel. So the president's own leadership pretty much had decided amongst themselves that probably Grady May is going to get this job. Of these guys, we've met him, we've known him, he's auditioned before. We think Grady May is going to get the job. And Grady May and I, we went back to corporals. Phenomenal clarinet player, phenomenal leader, super, super good guy. And I mean, because we were corporals together and sergeants together, and because we were auditioning for drum major together, there's always that competitiveness, that sometimes gets the better of you, and you say things and you're mean to each other, or just because it's in that, each of you are trying to get the edge on the other one.
Yeah.
So I'll say, while we weren't the best of friends, I think we both really admired each other's talents and abilities, but we were just always competing, against each other, which is it's sad sometimes that's what it comes down to, is you're competing with each other.
Very true.
But it was golly, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Master Gunnery Sergeant, bodybuilder.
Boatwright. Yeah.
It was Boatwright, Gray, me, and I feel like there might have been one more. It might have been Gleason up there interviewing for the position of assistant. And so you have to conduct the band, you have to lead the band on the march, and then you have an interview with all of the leadership of the band, the section commanders. So there's like 25 people in the room interviewing you, right? And I just ended up winning I just ended up coming off as a better candidate than everybody else, including Grady May, which I think they were having a hard time coming to terms with, because they had leaned so heavily on, hey, I think we're going to So I ended up winning that audition, and one of the officers in the presence zone was like, I do you understand that you're coming from here and you're
Oh,
am I there? All right,
yeah, you're
sorry.
good. You're good.
I dropped my phone. They're like, you're coming from here and you're going to have to do this. There's a big leap here. And he was right. There's a big leap there. And I was like, who at this point in the interview is going to say, oh, I had no idea that was going to happen? No, I was like, absolutely. I understand this and I'll be able to do it, kind of a thing. So, I became the assistant drum major for Drum Major Cole. And Drum Major Cole, if you've ever seen him drum major, he's a great drum major. And I learned quite a bit from him on how to spin a mace, how to polish spinning a mace. And when you drum major at the presence zone up there, it's a different style of drum majoring. In the fleet, it's snappy and it's quick and it's very very pop and very very snap. And when you get to DC to drum major in that uniform with that bear skin, keeping in mind that a Fleet Marine Band mace is probably going to be anywhere from 1.5 to 3 pounds, and the drum major's mace in DC is 6 or 7 or 8 pounds. It's heavier, yeah. So it's much more what I would call regal. It's much more. It's got to be polished and smooth and crisp and clean, but there's not that pow super snap to it. So it took a little bit. It came along quickly, but it took some learning. And I was there for 4 years, and the intent with bringing assistant drum majors into the DC band, their presence zone from the fleet, was to bring them in for 3 or 4 years, send them back out to the fleet, bring in another one for 3 or 4 years, and then eventually you're training people who are going to be the next drum major, right? You're giving them experience up there. They're marching that Friday evening parade. They're doing Arlington ceremonies. They're training new board members that come into the Marine Corps just to be presence zone members. So they skip boot camp.
Yeah,
you're training those people, and you're gonna train your predecessor essentially. So after 3-4 years, they didn't really want me to go back out to the fleet, and I had during my time there, our supply chief. We had an interim where there was no supply chief. It was during the tour period. So while I was doing assistant drum major stuff and marching and training, I ran the admin shop. I don't know, 6 months or something.
wow.
Got the band through their tour all over the country, lots of stuff. And then they saw that I had supply experience, and they had wanted for a time to have someone in the supply shop that just stayed there. Because every time, they would bring MOS supply chiefs in who were used to running an armory, and they walk into a shop that's got nothing but instruments, and they don't understand what's a bassoon, what's an oboe. So they had me work with the supply chief there, and then when he transferred, they kept me. They lat moved me to the MOS of Marine Bandsman, and I stayed on as supply chief, and I did supply chief until 2007, and that was great. So the supply at the time, we had a massive amount of inventory of instruments that had just been accumulated, and then a lot of them were super good instruments, but they weren't being used anymore.
Right.
And I found a way within the Marine Corps supply system to be able to send a lot of those instruments to fleet bands.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Some of them, like we had 40 trumpets sitting on the shelf that no one's using, and they're all box strats, right?
Wow.
So some of them I was able to turn in, and again, this is legit through the Marine Corps supply system. I was able to turn in to companies that we purchase things for credit for future purposes.
Oh,
and
wow.
then yeah, and it was all different instruments, tubas, trombones, trumpets, violins, all kinds of stuff. And then I kept enough aside and reached out to the bands and and sent to the bands whatever they needed at no cost, just from our inventory to your inventory,
Right.
off of our list onto yours, kind of a thing. And that was neat. So I was able to. I think I got something like $300,000 worth of credit.
Wow.
That doesn't run out. So, you have a budget every year for things, and sometimes you run out of money. Well, this money for the shop owner that got the instrument and gave me credit for that on a future purchase, that credit didn't run out. So we were able to use that for various things. And violins, I mean, in a fleet band, you don't purchase violins or cellos or any of those kinds of things, but violins can be $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. A bow, a very good bow, $6,000.
What?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And if you're going to price a professional bassoon, you're looking at $60,000. So these instruments are very expensive, right? Most people come with their own instruments, and they want their own instruments, and they want to use their own instruments. Other people come with their own, and they don't want to take them on tour, and they don't want to march through Arlington with them, and they don't want them thrown on the bottom of the bus and that kind of thing. So we buy very, very good quality professional instruments for them, and it's all part of the budget, but it can be very expensive. So the fact that I was able to garner a lot of money and towards future supply purchases was interesting. And then our uniforms, we have 5 different coats. There's 5 different styles of coats, and each coat has those braids on them. Each of the braids, they get smaller and smaller going down, and for each size of coat, they're different size braids. So you've got like 6 different size braids on each coat. And so the manufacturing of those, the band hadn't bought new uniforms in maybe 15 years. And so while I was supply chief, that was one of the things I had to get done. Was we had patched uniforms. You can't tell from the sideline, but there's guys out there marching with patched uniforms, and I had to find someone who was willing to retool their entire business to produce a lot of Marine Band uniforms, 5 different kind of coats, some with braids, some without braids, some long like the dress blues blouse, some short, and it was a really, really tough process, not only to find somebody, but then to get that through the Marine Corps, headquarters Marine Corps. Can we do a contract with this company? Does their manufacturing meet our specifications? Does the cloth, for I then had to go find a manufacturer to produce the cloth, because no one was producing red. No one was producing red material in that weave of wool.
Right.
So I had to find someone to produce the fabric, to then send to the shop to then make the thing, and then the braids. And we had amazingly in the shop were all of the schematics for all the uniforms in every size. So each size of uniform had its own schematic. So we're talking I had a master class in learning how to do contracts. Just to get that one done. But we got it done, and the company that did it was phenomenal, and at least back in 2014, everybody had new uniforms.
Yeah. It may not be the same now, but hey.
Yeah. Well, I say 2014. I was supply chief like 04 to 07, so it would have been that time frame. I retired in 2014, so they weren't new then. But the drum major Cole decided he's going to retire. In the interim, he had a couple of guys come in and out. They were all great drum majors. And he decided he was going to retire. And you came up and auditioned as well, right?
Not for that one.
Not for that one, but you.
I have gone out there. When you retired, I came up with King and that crew.
Yeah. Okay. So they didn't want me to leave being supply chief because I was doing a good job, and I asked if I could audition to be drum major, and they didn't really want me to audition to be drum major. They were happy with where I was, and I mean, I would have been happy to stay as supply chief, but I felt like if I didn't try to be drum major, I would have been like, man, I wonder if I could have been drum, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I also had a strong feeling that I should be drum major. And that might sound like I've got an ego, but I just kind of felt like with the people who were auditioning, I felt like there was the leadership part of it was lacking. I felt like I'd been with the President's Own now for what, 8 years. I'd been in the President's Own for 6, 7, 8 years. I knew the people. I knew their needs. I knew how professional they were. I knew to the extents to which the members of the band would go to help each other out and to be the best they can be, so that the next person sitting next to them was great as well. You know, they all worked super, super hard at what they did. And I felt like from a senior enlisted leader standpoint that it could be better. So I asked, they didn't really want me to, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a big deal. They were like, yeah, just audition. We got a lot of really qualified candidates. You know, he might not win and he'll still be our supply chief. I knew I had a corporal working for me at the time who was a phenomenal person. Super female Marine, super smart, very, very good at supply as a corporal. Had learned a lot more than a corporal normally should know, right? So had taken initiative prior to even getting to where up there at our shop. So in the back of my mind, I knew that if I did win, I wasn't going to leave them hanging. They had a great person here, and then I was still going to be around if they needed any help, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, long story short, I auditioned and I won, and it surprised a lot of people. Didn't surprise me, but a lot of people thought, you know, he hasn't spun a mace in 4 years. You know, he's going to forget all that, and of course I didn't. You know the deal. You spin a mace. It's like riding a bicycle. You need a couple of hours of prep work, and then you got it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I won that audition in 2007, became the drum major. I was a gunnery sergeant at the time, became drum major. I'd been a gunny for like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. I don't know. And became drum major and was selected for Master Sergeant. And then I think it was maybe a year or two, and I got frocked to Master Gunny. And then 6 months later, pinned it on for real.
Wow.
And then I retired in 2014. Yeah. So
yeah,
very, very interesting up there, you know, President's Own.
Yeah, and now you are glossing over, I'm sure, some important or interesting stories. We'll say it that way. I mean, to be with the President's Own, I mean, that's a pretty interesting thing in general. But as long as you were there and as much as you did with them, I am sure you have seen your fair share of interesting things. So, you know, do you have any good stories?
Well, so a funny thing that I always tell people about that they don't realize is, you know, the president's a really, really protected person, right? The office of the president himself, Secret Service everywhere. The drum major is the only person who's allowed within handshaking distance of the president with a sword, a usable, workable sword on his waist, right?
Wow.
So
I like that.
Yeah. I've got a weapon, and here I am shaking the president's hand on multiple occasions, all of them during our tenure. So, yeah, okay. So, kind of two quick stories. This picture right here behind me was the White House Correspondents' Dinner for President Bush, and he conducted the band for that, and it's on YouTube if you ever wanted to look it up. And so we had to go to the White House so that I could work with him on how to conduct and how to transfer the band. I salute you, then you salute me, not the other way around, you know.
Yeah.
And then he conducted the band for Stars and Stripes, like they always do, you know, or Stars and Stripes or Semper Fi, whatever it was. And here's how you conduct, and here's how you cut, and then I'll come and salute you and get the band back from you, and then we'll march off, kind of a thing. So we go to the White House. We get in there, and at the time he's in the media room, which is where the family watches movies. So it's a big room that's kind of like a tiny movie theater. So the colonel and I are sitting in that room waiting for this part of it to get over. He's going over. He's at the lectern going over jokes for this ceremony that he's going to do, and he's got his writers sitting there, and so the director and I come in and we sit down. It was Colonel Colburn. We sit down and he's telling these jokes, and I'm not laughing. And so he tells one. I don't even know what the joke was, but he tells one joke, and I don't laugh. And he looks. He goes, I'm going to change that joke around. And he tells the writers, write this. And so then he says something, and I bust out laughing. And he goes, that one's in. so that was pretty cool, right? Just that moment where he was kind of using me as a gauge. He's got all these yes guys in there who have written the jokes. They think they're funny. He's like, is it funny? But is it funny? And then, so I sit down and I'm trying to keep my demeanor. I don't know what to do in this situation, right? So he's telling these jokes and they're okay, but they're not like making me laugh. And then he changed one around and like retooled it right on the spot. And I laughed and it stayed in and he used it. So then we go and we get to that's done, and we go up to the room with the band's waiting, and I talk to him about how to do a changeover of directors like you would do in the fleet band, right? So the drum major brings him up, stops, turns around, the EBL comes out, and you just kind of change over right there. Well, because he's the president, I need to salute him. So we go through that whole thing. He conducts the band, and the whole time he's just making jokes. The band's laughing. Everybody's having a great time. It was like 20 minutes with the band and the president in a room all by ourselves. It was phenomenal. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So for this dinner, all of it. So everybody who's anybody, actors and media personality, come to this red carpet event. And the front door's got a red carpet, and you walk in the building, and cameras are going off, and the celebrities stop, and people take pictures of them, like you see, right? Well, the band, we have to come in that same door, but we don't walk down the red carpet. We're kind of off in the back, unseen, and we get through as quickly as we can get through. So this happens like on a Saturday night, and Monday, I'm in my office and I get a phone call from Scott Davis, who was a guitar player in Italy with me, and he's still in Italy. He's like, Bill, you got to look at Yahoo's main page. I'm like, why do I have to look at Yahoo's? He's like, you're on Yahoo's main page. I'm like, how am I on Yahoo's main page? So I go to yahoo.com, right? And there's a picture of Lindsay Lohan like this, getting a picture taken. And I was walking behind her. And there's me walking behind Lindsay Lohan. He's like, dude, you're on Yahoo. It's pretty funny. One of those weird things that happens. But at these events, there's 3 dinners: Gridiron Dinner, Carabao Dinner, and Alfalfa Dinner. These are clubs, DC clubs, where anybody who's anybody, whether you like them or not, politically or whatever, they're all members of these clubs. And they have dinners once a year, and our band would play essentially a marching patriotic opener for the dinner. So you come out, march on stage, into the ballroom, march on stage. There's a captain from the barracks there. March on the colors. The color guard comes on. You play the national anthem, play the service songs, march the colors off, and then you play a song or two, and then you march off. But so you'll see 3 presidents walk down the hallway. You'll see all of Congress walk down the hallway. And most of them come over and say hey to the band. They love the band. They come over and shake hands. So you're shaking hands with Bush 1 and Bush 2, the wives, family members, Jeb, and then Congress comes, and you meet some of these guys in Congress that were in the military, and the ones that weren't just kind of ignore you a little bit. But a lot of Colin Powell. I mean, just really all these people come through and see you and say hey, and how much they love the band and what you do, and that kind of stuff. So it's a neat atmosphere. But again, I had 80-hour weeks. Every week was an 80-hour week.
Yeah. And
of course Friday, you get to 6 a.m. You're at work Friday, and you do the rehearsal for the Friday parade, and then during the day you do a job or two, and then you rest up a little bit, get some dinner, and then you're back out there until 11 or 12 o'clock at night for the evening parades, and then back at it Monday. So, and that's if you're not doing a patriotic opener Saturday.
Yeah.
And of course Arlington.
there are full honor funerals at Arlington, which include the band. Honor funerals that aren't full honors have a rifle detail and a bugler. They have the hearse or the caisson, but they don't have a band and they don't have troops. And then depending on the rank of the person is how many, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 platoons. 4 platoons for a general, 2 for a field grade officer, and major captains below get one platoon in the band. So we would, every single day of the week, somebody from the bands at Arlington performing full honors funerals funerals for some fallen comrade, some hero that's passed, whether active duty or not. And then shortly after I became drum major, maybe a little bit before, the Commandant of the Marine Corps was like, it's unsat that a corporal that died in action doesn't get a full honors funeral with the band and troops. So if they died on active duty, they got the full thing, right? So I think probably over 500 funerals that I marched, full honor funerals in Arlington. And for me, the most important thing as a trumpet player that I ever did was taps. And then the most important thing that I did with the President's Zone in DC was Arlington full honor funeral. Inaugural isn't as important to me. The dinners aren't as important to me. Friday evening parades aren't as important to me as ensuring that the final, laying to rest for the final time, the fallen comrade and his family is there, her family is there. Nothing's as important as that. And I would make sure when I was training people that they realized what they were doing. It's neat to be able to say I was at the White House. It's neat to be able to say I did this or I did that. But when you go to Arlington, it's a solemn, reverent thing, and there's nothing we do that's more important.
Yeah.
So
I can totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you retired in 2014.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then at that point, what have you been doing after, and where have you gone?
Yeah. So my son was still in high school. He was an active, very, very avid cyclist. And I'm like, I'm retiring. We don't need to stay in DC. I don't really want to stay and work in the DC area. So you're the one in school. Is there somewhere you want to go? Is there somewhere we could go? And he, in racing in his age group as a junior, you meet a lot of people and you know a lot of teams. And there's a school out of Charlottesville, Virginia, Miller School of Albemarle, that had a pro level cycling team as part of the school. So just like you have to think of Texas football, high school football, and then just make that a cycling team.
Right.
All the money in the world, all the support in the world, traveled all over the country, raced all the big races in the country. And so that's where we went. We moved to Charlottesville area. I think we kind of landed in Crozet, Charlottesville area, right up in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, And so he finished out his high school there, and it was fantastic. And I just kind of worked doing a little bit of management jobs, and I worked in a hospital as a contracts and a procurement person in a hospital there in Charlottesville. But I knew pretty quickly that I just didn't like being inside all day long. So then I trained to become a home inspector. So I'm a licensed home inspector, and I do home inspections now as what I do for a living.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was licensed in Virginia for 6 years and eventually had my own company in Virginia. And when we left Virginia to come out here, I sold that company and came out here. And now I'm a contractor working for another gentleman. But I really, really enjoy the home inspections, but I still play. I started, we found a really, really great church here in Tucson, Tucson Baptist Church. They have a live stream that you can look at on YouTube anytime. And I play in the orchestra there, and Shauna, my wife, plays piano. And I play trumpet. So I hadn't played trumpet for maybe since 2001, really. I hadn't picked up the trumpet. And in 2020 to 2021 timeframe, we had come out here to visit just to see if we really liked it. We lived in an RV at the time and traveled. So we came out here for the winter, and we started going to church at Tucson Baptist Church, and they have a really good choir, and they had an orchestra. And I thought, man, this is starting to make me feel like I want to play again, right? So I bought a used, I didn't even have a trumpet. I bought a used Yamaha for like $120, and I just started practicing. And amazingly, things came back pretty quickly. Within 6 months, I was doing pretty good. I was comfortable playing in front of people. You know, I was in tune. I had a decent sound. I was hitting notes and all that kind of stuff. So we had left, though. The winter was done, and we were doing more traveling, and we had left to go back east. And so I was just kind of practicing on the road. And when we came back, the next year, the next winter, there wasn't the trumpet players had actually joined the Marine Corps. They were two brothers, and they had joined the Marine Corps.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, one of them's out now, and the other one's still in.
I think I know who you're talking about. They came
About
through
to
the
reenlist. Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And so they didn't have a trumpet. Well, I take that back. They had a young high school student trumpet that could play and was good, but just wasn't. They were used to having two trumpets, you know what I mean, and having the sound and the parts played. And so while there was a trumpet player there, it would be better to have two, right? So
Yeah.
I said, hey, I can play. I think I can play. Do you mind? And they were like, no, come on up. So we had joined the church the year before we left. A lot of snowbirds here are church members. They go back to their home church, and then they come back in the winter, but they do join anyway. So we had joined the snowbirds, and we went, traveled, and I came back. And so I started playing, and it was a lot of fun, and I was really still practicing hard and doing better. And then one of those brothers got out of the military and came back home, and he's studying at UA right now, doing really, really well. But he plays, and I was like, well, we don't really need three trumpets. We don't have a French horn, so I'm going to start playing French horn parts on the trumpet. So I couldn't do it by sight, but I was transposing the French horn parts. And then Kenny says to me, he says, hey, Bill, I've got an F alto cornet. I've only played it a couple times, and that's what's sitting right over here.
Yeah.
Let me show you this.
What? Wow.
It's an F alto cornet. So it's keyed in F. So this normally would like come and go right into here. It's got this extra length of pipe, and then there's more over here. So it's keyed just like a French horn, right? So I can play French horn parts on this and sound pretty close to a French horn.
Wow. That's really cool.
It is very cool, and I love it. So I was playing it with a trumpet, actually a flugelhorn mouthpiece at first, and then I was like, it sounds okay, but I'm not getting the fullness I need. So there's a buddy of mine, I was the best man at his wedding. Matt Summers was still in the President's Zone at the time. He's a euphonium player, phenomenal euphonium player. He just retired, but his wedding was in Yosemite, and we went to Yosemite. It was really, really great. But so Matt's one of these guys that if you think of something super weird and strange, he's probably got it, or we'll find it. One time the band needed one of those instruments that you use your hands in the air to play. One of those things. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to buy one because it was the only time we were ever going to use it. And he's like, I've got one of those. He brought it in, and they played it, and it was great. That's the thing that the Star Trek, that weird sound in Star Trek, whatever that instrument is. So anyway, I call him up, and I'm like, hey, I think don't you kind of make mouthpieces? And he's like, yeah, I've got my own CNC machine, and I kind of mess around. I make mouthpieces. Yeah, what you need? I'm like, well, I've got this F alto cornet that has a trumpet shank, but I'm not happy with the depth of or the size of the mouthpiece. He's like, you need an alto horn mouthpiece. I'm like, yeah, can you make me one? He goes, well, I could if I didn't already run out of my trumpet shank stock, but I have an alto horn mouthpiece right here with a trumpet shank on it. Do you want it?
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, I do. And he goes, all right, I'll ship it to you. So he sent me that mouthpiece, man, and it brought the horn to a whole nother level. I love playing it. If anybody out there is interested in what it sounds like, live stream, go to the live stream for Tucson Baptist Church and pull up and just listen to to the orchestra. And anytime you hear something that sounds like it might be a French horn, that would be me on this. But the story about me, which hasn't been told yet, about how I became a trumpet player, is my dad was like, I was young, I was just getting out of 6th grade, and he's like, hey, you're going to play an instrument. I'm like, okay. He said, here's a bunch of records of orchestral music, pick one. And I just grabbed a record, not knowing what it was going to be, puts it in, and it's something like the Planets. I don't know. I don't really remember, but he says, pick a sound, pick the sound that you want to play. So I'm listening to this thing, and I picked the French horn sound. And he's like, all right, we're going to go to the store, and we're going to get you a French horn, and you're going to learn how to play French horn. So the kind of side ancillary story, backstory, whatever to this is that my dad had a friend who has a son that's a little bit older than me and plays trumpet. And all this guy does is talk about how good his son is on the trumpet and how he's a great, great, great trumpet player.
Right.
Which the kid was. And so my dad's probably like, well, I got a son who could probably play something, you know? So he's like, all right, my son's going to play French horn, right? So we get to the store. Back in this day when I was in 6th grade, this music store was probably as big as a Target right now, and there were instruments all along the walls. At least to me, it looked like that.
Yeah.
Pianos, trombones, trumpets, sousaphones, too, everything, right? So we walk in there, and they're like, okay, sit down. We're going to go get you a French horn. So they bring this French horn out, and they put the French horn. And I'm holding this French horn, and I've got a smile on my face. I feel like it's Christmas morning. This is the greatest thing. I had no idea this is what it looked like. This is so cool. My dad goes, that looks like hell. Go get him a trumpet. The French horn goes away. They bring out a trumpet. He's like, yeah, you're going to play trumpet.
So all thanks to Dad.
yeah. All thanks to Dad. I played trumpet. And, you know, that was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I'm kind of living back in my childhood fantasy days of I'm getting to play all these really cool counter melody parts on French horn, not on French horn, but on a horn that I can play that sounds an awful lot like a French horn. So the range isn't as broad as a French horn.
Yeah.
I can't go quite as low, and I can't go quite as high. But my low note, it's an F horn. So my low note on that horn would be like a pedal C on the trumpet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it's a beautiful, it comes out just nice and big and round. So anyway, that's what I play in church now. And I'm really, really loving it. When I was looking forward to retiring, because you're working 80 hours a week for however many years I was up there with the Press Zone, pretty high stress environment. I had to tell General, sorry, we're not going to do that. What do you mean you're not going to do that? I'm a general. I told you to do it. Well, we're not going to do it. You know, we're not. I'll tell you what we are going to do, and then you can be happy with it or not. You know, that has happened. I've got plenty of stories about that. But those aren't situations you want to be in, right? You don't want to have to fight that battle. And so I had envisioned myself just being retired and traveling in an RV and riding my bike and just really, really enjoying, you know, being by a lake and kayaking, riding a mountain bike or a road bike on a cool place somewhere in America. And we did that for a little bit, Shauna and I, but I very quickly learned that I felt like a bum. I felt like while I was doing things that made me happy, I was this beach bum. I was just a guy with no purpose, only serving my needs, you know, and that's not a way for me to live anyway. And so I'd gone from thinking I'm going to retire and finally be able to kick back and relax. But what I really needed was a purpose, you know? So as weird as it seems, I provide really high quality home inspections for people buying a house, and they have no idea what they're getting into. And I can show them what's going to need some attention in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, what's great for another 15 or 20, but what you've got to fix right now if you want this to be if you're going to buy this house and move into it, this has to get fixed now. It might be structural, it might be the roof, it might be the water heater's busted and they were trying to hide it. Yeah, you just never know what's going on. So, but I'm providing a very good purpose for somebody there, right? And then on the musical side of things, I'm providing something that makes me very happy playing, and especially in an ensemble. And now I'm playing at church. So I really value that worshipful experience, right? And then this church has a school attached to it, a private school attached to it, and I'm giving trumpet lessons to 6th and 7th graders right now.
Nice.
I've got 4 students, maybe 5 coming up here in a little bit. So I'm teaching trumpet to young guys that are really interested in it. And now I know why some people don't take new students. It's really, really hard to teach someone what to do with their mouth and their tongue and their throat with a small trumpet mouthpiece up there and make a sound. And then there's a lot going on, and it's when I've done it for so many years, it's like, so how do you tell them what they're to make that sound, right? Well, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And then just getting that sound to sound like something that's not a kazoo, and getting them to hit something over an mid-staff A is difficult. So now I know why there are instructors who are like, I'm only going to take people who can already play so well, and then I can definitely elevate that. But those beginner students, it's difficult. It's a big, big challenge. So I'm doing it, and I'm learning as I go here on how to get them. But I really shout out to any guys out there who teach, regardless of the instrument, brand new students. It is not an easy thing.
I couldn't do it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But hey, Bill, thanks for coming on, sharing your story. It's definitely a unique story. Not everybody gets to be the drum major for the president's son. So it's a very, very unique story, and you've got some great stories. Especially, I love the stories from the first episode. Pretty fun.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming on and doing this. I appreciate it. And me and the wife are going to travel in an RV here shortly, so we'll be going around. Maybe when we're out your way, I can hit you up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually live in a neighborhood. I'm in a house, but it's attached to a RV resort.
Oh,
here
really?
In Tucson. Yeah.
Okay.
So right. I walk down the street around the corner, and you're in the RV resort area. So definitely come by.
Okay, I will for sure. I'll hit you up.
Yeah.
But with that, hey, again, thank you for joining me. It's been a great time. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you're having a hard time, and you need to talk to somebody, you can always dial 988, press option 1. That's going to put you in contact with somebody at the VA to be able to help you. If you don't want to do the phone call, you'd rather text 838-255. Again, that's 838-255. They'll be able to put you in contact with someone as well. Or if you want to go online, you can go to veteranscrisisline.net. You can always hit that chat icon, and same type of deal. You can go on there and chat with somebody. It's all anonymous. You only tell them what you feel comfortable saying. But one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know Bill cares about you. Everybody out there cares about you, and we want what's best. So please reach out for help. With that, Bill, one more time, thanks for joining. To everybody out there, stay motivated, change your socks.